Welcome.
It's maths time.
Add, take away, times, divide's quite hard to do. Right, I've been looking at multiplying numbers. We've looked at practicing our times tables.
Yep.
We've looked at mental ways
Yep.
of multiplying one digit by one digit by two digit, one digit by three digit.
Yep.
Well, today we're going to take it up a little bit further, like in a lift. Beep. Oh, you're in the wrong lift. Sorry, I've got the wrong lift.
Oh, okay.
So, today we're going to look at two-digit multiplied by two-digit numbers.
So we've got the calculation 14 times 23. Now
Times multiply.
Or 14 lots of 23. And the method we taught yesterday and the day before doesn't really work here, okay? We need to use a formal written method. So there are two options we're going to teach you today. First is what we're going to call the column method. Mr. A, show us how to turn that into a column method, please.
Well, it's very similar how we do column addition or column subtraction.
I thought it might be.
We'd lay them out in place value on top of one another, but we just need to make sure our operation symbol is clear that we're doing multiplication. So we've got 14 lots of 23, 14 multiplied by 23, or 14 times 23. Loads of different ways of saying it. But we know basically we need 23 14 times. Okay? Now, the way we start with our column addition is we always start with the ones, and we do the same here. But you've got to be careful to make sure you multiply all of the parts. Okay? So we're going to start with our 4. Now, we're going to do 4 lots of 23. We're going to partition this 23 into its 3 ones and its 2 lots of 10. So first of all, we'll do 4 multiplied by 3 ones. 4 multiplied by 3 ones, Mr. S.
12.
12. Well, we don't write down the whole number 12. We're similar to column addition. We place the 2 ones from 12 in the ones column. Because there's 1 10 in 12, though, we carry that into the tens column. Now we've done 4 lots of 3, but now we need to do 4 lots of 2. And this is 2 lots of 10, so it's 4 times 20. 4 times 20, or 4 times 2, we can use that if I know rule.
Well, 4 times 2 is 8, so 4 times 2 lots of 10 must be 8 lots of 10. 80.
Good, and we don't write 8 0 because we know that 0 in 80 would be in the ones column and the 2 is hiding that. So our 8 will go here, but wait, we've still got this 1 10 we carried. So that 8 lots of 10, add this 1 lot of 10 we carried, it's now
9 lots of 10.
9 lots of 10. So we've done 4 multiplied by 3, 4 multiplied by 20, so we've timed the ones by everything. So I'm just going to cross them out to make sure I know I've done everything with him.
Why don't we give that 4 to the bin man outside?
Yeah, I know who are
That
making
you might be able to hear. Take the 4, we don't need it anymore.
Now let's move on to our tens column. But wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait, Mr. Postman. Because this is 1 lot of 10, we need to move every calculation we do now into the tens column. So what we do there is we use a placeholder to make sure all of our answers move into this tens column. And we put the placeholder in the ones column. This is only when we're multiplying by our tens. Okay? If we were multiplying by hundreds, maybe there's a challenge for you, then you'd put 2 lots of placeholders to make sure everything would be in the hundreds column. If you're multiplying by thousands, you put 3 placeholders to make sure you're in the thousands column. And the same carries on. But we're in the tens, so we put 1 placeholder, so we're in the tens column. 1 multiplied by 3, or 110 multiplied by 3, Mr. S.
30.
30. And we just put the 3, because our placeholder already makes it look like it is 30. Then we carry on. 1 multiplied by 2, but we know this is 1 lot of 10, multiplied by 2 lots of 10, 10 times by 20. Mr. S.
I'm going to use an if I know, because see, I know that 10 times 10 is 100, so 10 times 20 must be 200.
200. And it's a bit like 1 times 2 equals 2, but as Mr. S says, that's 200, because the placeholders have pushed it into that column. Then finally, the last skill you need to do is we've multiplied our ones by everything, our tens by everything, but we need to add these two together to make sure we get the right answer. So we start with our ones, like in column addition. 2 add 0.
2.
9 lots of 10 add 3 lots of 10.
12 lots of 10.
12 lots of 10, we put the 2 here and carry the 1. 2 lots of 100 on its own, but add this 1 that we've carried.
3 lots of 100.
So 14 multiplied by 23 equals 322. That's one method, but some of you might struggle with that method, so we're going to teach you one other method that could help. Now, our next method involves partitioning. Mr. S, remind me what partitioning means.
It is when you put up a wall between two to separate two rooms, so you can have, sort of like an enclosed space in one room, so you don't get the noise maybe from the other room. Maybe you need the rooms for two different purposes.
Once again, Mr. S proving he's worth every penny he is paid. Partitioning is when we use our place value to break numbers down into their parts. And we're going to partition this into what we call a grid method. Now, because I've got two two-digit numbers, this is what my grid would need to look like. I would need 2 columns for one number and 2 rows for my other number.
Okay. Oh, for goodness sake!
And now I'm going to have to redraw that grid. Now, let's have a look at how we're going to fill this in. Well, let's take my first number, 14. I'm going to break that into its 2 parts. It's got 1 lot of 10 and 4 ones. And I'm going to choose to put this in underneath my multiplication sign here. So I put my 10 from 14 in one row, and I put my 4 ones in the other row. Then I'm going to take my number 23, and I'm going to break that down into 2 lots of 10, and this time it goes across the top. 2 lots of 10 and 3 ones. Now, if you've ever used a multiplication grid at school, one of those large ones that has numbers 1 to 12 down one side, numbers 1 to 12 across the top, you'd know that when you link 2 numbers up, say you got 6 and you got another 6 and you join them together, where they met would be 36. Well, this is a bit similar to those multiplication grids, but what we've got here is our own numbers. We're not just doing the times tables here, we're using a whole host of other numbers. And all we do is we start filling in these boxes by writing the answer of where the 2 factors meet. We put the multiple, the answer, to those 2 factors. So let's start nice and easy. Let's go 4 times 3. What would go into this box here, Mr. S?
12.
12. So I've done my 4 times 3. Let's do 3 times by 10.
30.
4 times by 20. Might need to use an if I know.
4 times 2 is 8, so 80.
And you use a 10 times 10 before to figure out 10 times 20 is
200.
200. So we've multiplied all our parts together, a bit like we did with our column multiplication, but it's just laid out a bit differently. Now we need to take all these answers and add them together. 200, 80, making sure my place value are all in the correct rows, columns. Bit more complicated with adding up because we've got 4 numbers, but we should be okay. Our ones, 0, 0, 0, 2.
2.
0, 8, 3, 1. How many lots of 10 there?
8, 3 is 11, add 1 is 12. 12 lots of 10.
Put the 2, carry the 1. 2 lots of 100, add the 1 we've carried.
3.
322.
Make sure you remember when you line those numbers up after you've worked them all out, that you line them up correctly, okay? If you lean one over too far this way or you push one too far that way, your numbers won't be in the correct columns and you're going to get the wrong answer.
Yes. So, those are 2 different methods that you can practice using today. Off you go.